All right. So let's talk about why 80% of new real estate agents fail within the first 2 years. And the reason why is they don't have a system. So if this is you, if you're watching this video, I'm going to walk you through what's called the exclusive listing pitch kit. So I started in commercial real estate many, many years ago. And I started working with this individual here, Bob Knakal. And what I loved about working with Bob is that we had developed a system, and the system was built around penetrating small markets. The idea being is that you need to specialize in a market. If you look at this map here, if you look at this image, you can go to BKREA and take a look at this site right here. And what you're going to see is all these map pictures and maps on the wall. These are micro markets. Now, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. I don't care what you want to sell, whether it's commercial real estate, residential real estate. There's many niche markets within commercial real estate. But the thing is, if you're just getting started, you got to get in business. You got to start doing deals, not big deals. The big deals will come later. But you got to get out there and you got to start doing deals. You got to do small deals. But the thing is, you got to focus on one thing. And that's what I was taught when I was first started. I was taught, hey, we're the large. I was with Coldwell Banker Commercial Real Estate in the beginning. And they said, we're the largest, most successful real estate company in the world for a reason, because we've got a system. If you follow the system, you will succeed. If you deviate because you think you know better, you're looking to cut corners, or you can't follow directions, you're going to fail. I never forgot that. And I was in New Jersey. I started in New Jersey, but I had to go into New York every Saturday to meet with Bob. He was the one that was the only one I could find that was actually implementing the system the right way. Now, today, you can see here, if you look at this website, what we've built out. And so I wanted to, I just want to show you something else real quick too. This is a great site to look around. You'll see that even though this is New York City, Bob focuses primarily on a small target market. Now, today, the internet has given him a much bigger reach, but he focuses on development sites. Now, he would never have been able to succeed going after development sites when he first started. He started out selling small buildings in New York, little, 1-story, 2, 3, 5-story buildings. That was it. $500,000, $300,000, $1 million, $2 million, that kind of thing. And then over time it grew, and one deal perpetuated another. But he focused on one market, and that's what we did. And I worked with Bob. I worked a market in New York City. I've done the same thing up here in Connecticut where I live, and I've worked with brokers all over the United States. And the key thing here is you got to focus on one thing. And this is where the 80% fail. Is they don't focus. They're scattered all over the place. Now, the other 20%, sometimes they get lucky. They get a deal. One of the worst things that I've seen is when somebody lucks out and gets a deal in the very beginning and they make a lot of money and they don't have their system in place and the money goes to their head. And the next thing you know, 2 years goes by and they've blown all the money and they don't have a system. They don't have any foundation. They don't have a business. And they leave the business. And it's a very painful experience, because you blow money. Now you got to go someplace else. You got to start all over. But if you stick with it and you do it the right way and you follow the system, like I explained, you will succeed. Now, if you want a little inspiration, go over and look at this, right? This is Seraphin Real Estate, seraphinre.com. I had created a video interview with Joe Seraphin, who did this deal. Now, this was a nice deal. It was a $14 million industrial deal that came from a Google search. Now, a lot of people are all about social media, but my experience is from Google search. That is where you want that. A lot of your clients are not on social media. Homeowners are not really on social media. They're not following people on social media. They might see something on Instagram, or maybe they, poke around on Facebook. But I'm going to tell you, the high intent results are coming from Google search and today the LLMs. So there's a formula that aligns with this. So the idea being is that you really only need a blog, market reports, success stories, focus on a market. If you have a little bit of money and you can do press release marketing, press releases are they just crush it. They are the most powerful thing on the planet, and they're an amazing way to you can use them to get exclusive listings. But that's all here in the pitch kit. Now, what I did was I put this together. It's a 200-page book, and it's very, very easy to read. I'm telling you, you follow this book, you will succeed if you follow. This is the blueprint. Like if you're looking for a blueprint for chocolate chip cookies, this is the recipe for the best chocolate chip cookies. And this is made with my wife in Amalfi, Italy. And you can see right here, this part right here, this is what you really need to know. This is probably one of the most important parts right here, these 2 pages, right? Now, you can pick up a copy of the exclusive listing pitch kit, and you can join our school group if you really want to get into it, because this is all we talk about every day is how to get business, how to get the leads, how to get the exclusive listing. Getting the lead is one part. You got to be able to get the lead, but you got to know how to get the exclusive listing. And even if you know of a property that's on the market and the owner says, nah, I've got all these objections, right? My sister's a broker, my friend's a broker, I know every broker, bring me a buyer. And you think, okay, bring me a buyer. Okay, I'll go find a buyer. Maybe there's a deal here. Well, there's not. You have to be contractually retained with no exclusions whatsoever. Even if they have buyers on the table, there's ways to get around that, but you need to get these exclusive listings. Absolutely, without a doubt, 100%. And that's what this whole book is about. It's about how to build an exclusive listing business where you can dominate a market and you can give the same presentation over and over and over. How to use your website, how to create, how to write content, how, the power of market reports. It's not a transactional business. The transaction comes later. You need to build proof first. And the way you do that is by going into a market and you know it better than anybody else. Now let's take a look real quick at the math, right? And this is one of the things that, when I started, I would go in every Saturday morning, I would help Bob Knakal, and we would analyze markets. We would analyze what works, and we would just continually fine tune this thing. But the reality is this. Now, back then, we focused on a market of 500 owners. Now, this story that if you pick up a copy, you're going to read about here. Let me go back over here. And this is the story of what did Bob do? He says right here, at first we tried to cover everything, every building from 59th Street to 95th Street. We thought that breadth, the size would make us dominant. It did the opposite. We were spread thin and we knew it. So we pivoted. Instead of going broad, we went deep. We focused intently on a small target market of about 500 owners. We learned every brick, every deal, every story. That focus turned us into the obvious choice. Now, you got to understand the math. Now that model has changed. It's a bigger market now. It's really, over time, the formula has expanded from 500, a market of 500 owners to 1,000 owners. And the reason why is if you look at the math, first of all, if you're on the residential side, I think they say that the average, homeowner keeps a property for 7 years, or maybe now it's even 10 years because things have changed because of interest rates and things like that. So the volume has changed. But, historically, it's been about 5 or 6%, in any particular area. So if you're targeting 1,000 owners of property, then you've got 50 or 60 properties a year that sell. Now, if you're focused on one market, you're going to get to know who those owners are, and you're going to have an opportunity to get in there and give them a presentation. Even if they say, I'm going to give it to, I can't give the listing to you, I'm going to give it to my friend, I know all these brokers, blah, blah, blah. Forget about that. Don't even, we get into that. We don't even listen to that. You move forward, and there's a whole formula about how you can overcome the exclusive thing without even mentioning the word exclusive. It's a couple steps, but you repeat the model over and over. And this is how you become one of the 20% that succeeds after 2 years. You don't want to be one of those 80%. This is the solution. I am telling you without a doubt that this is the formula. Now, once you get going and you build your business, you're going to find that you're always, no matter how big you are, like, when Bob, we'll use Bob as an example. Bob has started out, selling $500,000 to $2 million properties. That's what I was selling. The market that I worked was a little bit bigger. I was selling more like $1.5 million to $5 million, even $10 million properties. So I had a really good market that I worked for many, many years. But that's, what on the commercial side, the transactions are smaller, or the dollar price could be larger, but the turnover rate is slower because the average commercial property owner might own a property for 40 years. So if you're going after, most of the buyers are buying these properties between the age of 35 and 50. Well, when are they selling them? They're selling them when they're 80 or 90, so that becomes your market. So, it's a different market. Now, so every market has its own unique nuances. But what you're going to find is no matter what level of the business you're at, when you start out, you can go into a small market and just focus on small deals, and you're going to capture a market share. As you do more and more deals, you can shift your market. Instead of the smaller deals, you go into the larger deals. Now, but it's going to still be the same thing. If you're on the commercial side, 1,000 owners with 2.5-3% turnover, well, that's only 25, 30 properties. But if you're, let's say you're in the strip center market, you're selling strip centers, or you're selling small multifamily. Well, a lot of owners that own these properties that are, anywhere from 2 unit to 20 unit buildings, they own 5 buildings. So 1,000 owners might collectively own 5,000 properties. And a lot of times these are investors. So they might be involved in they might be involved in partnerships elsewhere. And they usually own the same kind of properties. So if you target a market of 1,000 owners of small multifamilies, 2 to 10 units, 2 to 20 units, or whatever it is, even though out of 1,000 properties, you might only have 25 a year. But if the average owner owns 5 properties, you're now starting to get up to 125, 150 properties a year. Your odds are much greater. So it's important to understand both sides. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling land, apartment buildings, office buildings, development sites, whatever. But that is the key, and that's why, I pointed out in the very, very beginning, when you look at this right here, these are all micro markets. I worked a micro market. Now, Bob works a big part of New York, Manhattan, but he only goes after development site opportunities. So his market is really, 1,000 to 1,200 owners is who he ideally targets. Now, the internet, the Google search results are primarily what's bringing in a lot of inbound business. So that's an important thing. So again, but the only way you're going to succeed with that is you got to build a website that mirrors what your strategy is. And you can modify it over time. But anyway, I don't want to go on forever on this, but what I'm just going to run through real quick. If you want to pick up a copy of this pitch kit, I've got a link down below. But this goes through everything. Very important. This is Jim Ventura. I worked with Jim Ventura. I was Bob's first broker. Bob sold his business based for $100 million based on this exact model. Now, what we've done here is we've applied the internet. What I've done, I figured out a model for the internet for Google search and how to get in front of the eyeballs of the people you're trying to attract. But the internet model is based on the fundamentals that I learned working with Bob. Jim Ventura started a year after me. Now, Jim Ventura today is a partner with nnnpro.com, which is a triple net lease business. They're the largest triple net lease broker in the country, I think. And but he started out selling, small little buildings in a tiny little area, 300,000 to $1 million. And over time, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he just kept doing more and more deals. Um, so this here, we go into, here I was featured on the New York Times. I tell that whole experience and how to use content, the importance of content. We talk about the doubter, the person that you're trying to do business with. You have to understand the characteristics of who that person is. Um, and then, how to build your business like a Netflix series, right? Everything you do is another episode. So you want to keep building episodes, keep building a portfolio of episodes, market reports, success stories. If you don't have success stories, post information about properties that have sold in your market. There's so many different angles, but this is, we've got workbooks here. We've got everything. This is the ultimate guide for any single broker. So if you are just getting started, or you want to you want to avoid the struggle, the formula is right here. So hopefully this is helpful. Take a look at some of my other videos. Click the link down below. Pick up a copy. I'm telling you, it's going to, all the things here that you're going to learn in here in this book are what you need to know to build your business, how to deal with people, how to work a market the right way, why people resist you, what are they thinking when they object to you. When you understand what people are thinking and what they object to, it's very easy to overcome the objection, because you already know what the objection is before they even say it. A lot of times the owners don't even know why they're objecting, but you already know how they're thinking. So we get into, that whole thing. And, this just puts you head and shoulders way above everybody else. Why we use things in, the importance of 369. Why do we use 369? Because it's a way of communicating. We communicate in threes, 3, 6, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's rhythm to that. And everything we're trying to do is to, like train you almost like a, like a skilled athlete, to, just to refine you so that you are like a super broker. And this is, all these things in here are going to give you an advantage. And every single one of these things here is going to give you an advantage. How to use bullet points, what are picture words? How to use words? What are the words that people are going to remember? And we've got the whole thing here, all the words. I mean, you're going to be able to use this stuff for the rest of your life. What this is all based on the best marketing on the planet. I didn't make this up. It's me putting, going deep, deep, deep into the research. And anyway, it just goes on. It's very, very simple. You're going to find this is an easy read. You can keep this on your desk. It's really going to help your business. So if you're, hopefully you're still here. And if not, pick up a copy. I'm telling you, this is how you're going to solve the problem of, you can be the best, smartest person in the world, but if you don't have a system, you're not going to succeed in this business. Have a good day, everybody.